next meeting on February 8th. First on the agenda is public participation. Mr. Moss has asked to speak to us. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Sure.
So Bryan Moss, 16 Ruthven Circle. So I just wanted to come back today. There's some new information that I wanted to provide you, and also I wanted to kind of recap some of the stuff as well. First of all, just to reiterate that we're in Sustainable Shrewsbury, and the members of Sustainable Shrewsbury, myself, are all in support of the goals of to improve the athletic infrastructure and raise the money and spend it. I think where we differ in opinion is whether we go with an artificial turf field or we're promoting a organically managed natural grass field. So I just want to start with that. I should have had slides, but instead I just thought of a different way that I wanted to address the major thing that we're looking at, which is extended use. We're looking at artificial turf for extended use. So I have my first envelope here, which is the current usage. So if I look in this, I know the athletic director, one of the presentations, it said we have about 100 uses of the field today. So if every penny is a use, this would represent 100 uses. So this is kind of what we're looking at as far as usage today. Now that's not enough. We all agree on that. So the school committee in June had approved 3 priorities, priority 1, 2, and 3, to support them. Approved the supporting of the 3 priorities, but was only approved moving forward on the first one. So I have priority 1 here in envelope number 1. So this would be, if we do the artificial turf field and we spend $800,000 on the artificial turf field, what would we get? Well, Gale Associates presented the facts from UMass Lowell and what we would get from an artificial turf field. So again, every penny a use, every dollar 100 uses, we would get approximately 700 uses. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 700 uses here. But the turf committee presented the rental plan, because we need to look at how we're going to pay to replace the warranty is 8 years, but we're going to extend that out maybe every decade, right? Let's just say that we're going to replace the field for $400,000. We need to pay for that. So we were given figures that would say, okay, the rental plan, how are we going to do that? So rent it out about 1,000 hours. So 2.5 hours an event, which is, I think, the statistic we use, would give us around 400 uses that we're going to rent out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 400 uses rented out to non-school activities would be outside to either Shrewsbury or extended community. So that leaves 300 uses that the school would use. So we don't have this information right now as far as the planned usage, but I'm extrapolating from the rental use of 400 and the total use of 700. So that would leave 300. That would triple the use of today, right? So this 300 is a magic number because Gale Associates in its own report said that 300 uses is from a well-maintained natural grass field. So if we're looking to do 300 school uses, that's Gale Associates' own report saying that we can do that with a well-maintained natural grass field. So that's, and if we look at the 300 number, we would say, well, today we have football and soccer, but we want to add field hockey and lacrosse. Well, again, if we take the 400 away in the planned turf, it's 300. So this has to include the field hockey and lacrosse. So therefore, if this includes the additional field hockey and lacrosse, boys and girls, all into this 300 number, lo and behold, natural grass meets that need, meets that extended use requirement. Now we could talk about, that renting out to community is important, right? Is a requirement, as important as the use of the school. But to make that delineation, the 300 that just school requirements, school needs, even the extended use of the other teams that we want to get onto that stadium field is the number 300, which is what Gale Associates says can be met by natural grass. So I just want to do that. Then, just to put it in perspective, I know this has not been approved by the school committee, but priority number 2 is to install it's not approved to go forward yet, but it's unanimously supported, potentially in the future, we don't know, but supported at this point. So if we look at that, that would be a lighted artificial grass field, and those will give you 700 uses. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 700 more uses if we do priority 1 and priority 2. Showing today that we have less than 100 uses, 300 uses that we want to do to meet all of our school needs, 400 uses to rent out to pay for the fields in the future. And then we have 700 uses. I think we need to bring that overall picture back, because now we have 1,400 uses eventually if we do priority 1, priority 2. Today we're only doing less than 100. So potentially, if we did organically managed natural grass in both priority 1 and priority 2, you could have 300 and 300, which would be 600 uses, which would be tripling the usage on each one of those fields. And I'm running out of time, but I just wanted to give the last thing, which is the new information. So I just wanted to hand this out, which is the biggest issue that faces the students today, which is global climate change. So this is from the Union of Concerned Scientists, and this will show you that the migration of climate coming up over the next century. And so what it does, what it shows you, this is actually Union of Concerned Scientists, but it actually is cited in the Worcester Climate Change Action Plan. So if you go to Worcester's Climate Change Action Plan, it tells you this. This is cited in there from Union of Concerned Scientists. It shows you that in a higher emissions standard, that the Massachusetts climate will be like South Carolina by the end of the century. So as we look towards all the southern conferences getting away from artificial turf because of the heat issue, EnviroFill, it was represented that it would be 25% cooler to go with EnviroFill than crumb rubber. But I look at it different, 25% cooler than 200 degrees, which it can get, is the highest reading that they had in hot summer months. So if you take 25% cooler than 200 degrees, it's still in an extreme temperature mode. But that doesn't even include this climate change migration and temperature rise based on this. The new news is that this month UMass came out with more climate science saying that the Northeast is warming 50% faster than the rest of the world to the 2-degree target, which is global average, but we will be 50%. So that's 1 to 2 decades faster. So I just don't, with the heat issue, I just wanted to show you that what we do today, we're going to be thinking out beyond, as we replace every decade. And, that just brings me to a quote that I wanted to do, which is, it's a Native American proverb, but, in every deliberation, we must consider the impact of our decisions on the next 7 generations. Well, this, as you can see, climate change is bringing this to where it's going to be hot. It's going to be like a southern state. Maybe the heat issue is going to be there for us. And just one last thing I just wanted to leave with you is to ask you this question, which we ask at divestment at UMass all the time, but it's an important question to consider. Whose side are you on? That of the artificial turf, fossil fuel, and chemical industry, or that of the very students whose futures you are stewarding? So please consider that. And we would like to request more specifics on use based on that presentation, if we could get the specifics to help us understand that. And also, given that we can show that natural grass can meet the needs of extended use, at least for the school, we would request that we investigate organically managed natural grass, given that we can meet the school's needs, maybe not the extended communities. So thank you.
Can I just ask one question for clarification in terms of some of the numbers, Mr. Moss, that you're presenting? In terms of the usage, if it were natural grass, what assumption are you basing that on in terms of the number of uses you could get with organic natural grass?
So the Gale Associates report that was commissioned by the Boosters Club, they reference in there that a well-maintained natural grass field will get you up to 300 uses, events in a year. Mm-hmm. So that's triple the number of events that the stadium is.
And is that assuming no rain, dry conditions, in terms of, because I think the point that the team has made multiple times, and that I think in correspondence with the school committee, is that natural grass, no matter how it's managed, can't be played on in wet conditions without ruining the field. And there's nothing I've yet to see that says any kind of managed natural grass could sustain with the growing seasons here, at least over the next several decades. It's obviously concerning information is coming out relative to climate change. But in terms of how, without rest seasons, without not playing on the turf when it is wet or frozen, it's usage beyond just a calculated number, assuming certain conditions. Gale's report is Gale's report relative to a variety of things that they might look at, but there is more to this than a mathematical equation of how many times under certain conditions could you play across a year, It also has to do with the fact that what happens when you don't play in optimal conditions and what happens to the turf over time when it's played on to the degree, right now we only use it during one season. We don't use it during the spring because it has to rest. There's a lot of empirical evidence that it's very difficult to maintain grass fields with the amount of usage we have now, never mind adding to it. So I just think it's important for those watching to recognize that this is not just about a pure calculation of how many times might you be able to use it. It also has to do under which conditions and how frequently during peak times it might be available to our student athletes, our physical education students, and so forth. So I just thought it was important to.
Sure, I can answer that question. I think the answer to your question why is how does that relate to weather and usage in that respect? I think where the disconnect is happening is that when we talk about well-maintained natural grass, when we look at our Parks Department, they have done everything that they've been afforded as far as budget to maintain the natural grass fields that we have today. And admittingly, I think during one of the presentations, you need to resaw it every 5 years. So with the field going on its 15th year, that would be 3 times that would have been resodded for, I think, a cost of $100,000 each, which would be $300,000, which is still well under the $800,000 or $400,000 for replacing fields. But we're almost looking at apples and oranges when we look at the current field, which is in I think Gail said fair shape or in bad shape, where it can't even handle normal usage. But what the industry standard and Gail is just repeating is that it can handle, even with weather, 300 uses if you maintain it with replacing the sod every 3 years or give it the normal care that would be afforded to a natural grass field. And therefore, even with weather, you could get 300. So if it given if it rains, you might have to, it's not perfect, it's not a plastic field where you can just play on it. If it rained and it was downpouring, then yeah, you're gonna have to move a game. But I think what they're saying is, given the field conditions now, you're canceling games way more than given the usage statistics that are saying if it was well maintained. And by well maintained, it's no discredit to the Parks and Rec. It's to the budgeting of the appropriate maintenance of a natural grass field. So I think it's in such disrepair now that it brings us down to 100. If we actually took care of it, given the well-maintained guidelines of what Gale Associates is saying, is you're going to get, even with weather, those 300, and then you'll be able to bring all these teams on that you're looking for to meet the 300 number of uses that is calculated off the subtracting out the rental plan for. So I do believe even with weather, it's going to meet those figures. And that's, this is something that I would hope that it's enough information to say, why not? Why not look at organically managed natural grass? Why not look at natural grass? Why not commission some time to do that, given all of the issues with it being over our aquifer, or given the heat issues we just described, or given the chemicals that are in this? Would it be looking at the future generations? Don't we want to take a look at that? I don't think it would. If we commissioned, I'm sure the Turf Committee is highly qualified to go out and use its consultant resources or et cetera to bring some of these hard metrics back and give you a better sense.
Well, I think we want to make it clear, there has been a lot of information looked at, and you've been with us along that path. I don't want anybody watching at home to think this is being done in a vacuum without information. We've looked at usage, safety, the materials themselves, so we have looked at that. It's been considered. And again, for anybody watching, we recently sent you an email discussing usage. And I think the disconnect that I'm seeing is that whole piece, a root system is a root system, regardless of it natural or organic. The Park and Rec Department has done an excellent job maintaining. We have an immediate need to do something with that field. So we're looking at a proactive, cost-effective, long-term solution to that stadium field. And when we're looking at usage, there has to be some downtime, some rest. So I hear what you're telling us, but I just don't understand how the needs of the schools and the community are going to be met with an organic grass field, knowing that all of the literature talks about it has to have a rest period. So we have looked at everything. It was a unanimous vote. We're more than happy to consider new information, but I think the usage piece we have clearly addressed, and we voted unanimously to move forward with the position that we're in. And we are moving on into the fundraising phase of that. So thank you for coming. We do appreciate it. We do hear you, but we do feel that we have already provided those answers.
Okay, great.
Thank you.